Well, it's good evening to you all again as we are on our fourth night of Summer Bible School. And tonight we're going to be looking at self. How many of you enjoy that? Just sitting down and who am I? Where am I at with where God is calling? But before we get into that, any thoughts on any of the lessons or any questions, anything that stuck out to you, maybe especially from last night, but could be from the whole week? I guess the thought that I wanted to let from last night is, can I see my occupation as a platform for evangelism? That might sum up what we spent a whole hour talking about. But just using work as a way to make God known to the nation. So the children had their memory verses. What are the two verses that I try to bring out every night? Pop quiz. First one is, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting, out of Daniel to Belteshazzar, and then also out of Corinthians, but let a man examine himself. Are we examining ourselves that we aren't found wanting? So a question to start off here tonight with, as we think about self and balancing self, is how much time do I get for myself, or me time, or self-care time? Just different words that maybe we hear bantied about. Is it right and is it wrong, and how much do I get? Mm-hmm.
What is considered sleeping time?
Mm-hmm. Isn't that part of the equation, is knowing the definition of terminology? We can get in trouble, can't we, by putting a proclamation on something. Maybe you can give a definition of what is good self-time. Like, is it all wrong? Or is it wrong to have time to yourself? And maybe if we do have time to ourselves, what should I be doing? Maybe what I'm doing with that time is important. I meet with a group of men from our church once a month. We go out for breakfast together and just have a time of chatting, and we got to talking about summer Bible school and just asking how it's going. And so I put that question, after we left, I was like, so I put that on our group chat. Like, what do you think about this question? And it was interesting, the different thoughts that came up. One is, what's the definition? What are we calling self-care or me time, or is there a better word? And I think there is a better word. I think that's our culture and telling us that. And I think there's a perception that comes along with words. So if I said, is there time for rest? Does that give you a different picture? And I think to me it does. Self-care, to me, sounds like a spoiled person pampering themselves. But Jesus pulled himself away from the crowds to rest for a while. But then, what was he doing? He was praying to the Father. He wasn't looking to entertainment and pampering himself and things like that. So as we were discussing this, the one question that one of the fellows asked is, where is the line between selfish and self-care? So is it being selfish for me to have this self-care? And then kind of along with that is this rest or self-care, is that the point of what the Sabbath was for? Or what was the day of rest that God implanted in our lives that we need? What are we using the day of rest for is another question. Am I getting that rest, or is it another day of the weekend as the world sees it, and I come to Monday and I'm tireder than when the weekend started? Did I really honor the Sabbath day if that's what I've come to? And maybe there are some activities, and just this is thought. We haven't developed doctrine off of this, but are different jobs that we have as men and ladies, does the rest look a little different depending on what your job is? So if you're a school teacher and you're in the classroom all day and you don't get any exercise, is a good walk or a good run on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, is that rejuvenating? Where if you're a day laborer and you're swinging hammer all day long and climbing ladders, and does a run look different? Again, like I said, we didn't determine if this is right or wrong. It was just some questions that some of the group had asked. Maybe I'll throw it out to you. What do you think on some of those thoughts or questions? So is sitting on the back porch, sipping a cup of coffee, enjoying nature, is that rest? Can it be selfish? If I'm avoiding my family and not being the dad that I'm supposed to be, and I'm taking time, so does attitude also play into right and wrong? I see some heads moving. Don't hear the thoughts coming out yet, but and then maybe the last question that we had asked or talked a little bit is, has wealth influenced what rest is? Or has it influenced our rest? And the thought was, in our vacations, our time off, our recreation. And the one fella, his in-laws are out in Idaho, and he was saying 1 year was tight, money was tight, so they didn't go out to visit the in-laws like they usually did. He said he realized that money affected what he would do on vacation and what he thought he needed. When the funds weren't there to take the flying trip out, he didn't really need to do it, and life went on. And I think they found some other ways to do local things that were relaxing and rejuvenating.
I was headed there, Joel, with my thoughts, and you started it.
Okay.
And,
Well, you finish it. Sorry for interrupting.
the self-time took me to leisure time, and I guess I maybe don't think of leisure so much as sitting on the front porch reading a book, although it very easily could be.
Mhm.
And, but I was thinking, we've been raised in an affluent society, and most of us, all of us, have more money than we need. And we find it pretty easy to justify things on behalf of taking care of myself. So I need a hobby to take care of myself, or I need a vacation to take care of myself, or I need to go and list them off. And those things wouldn't even be an option if we didn't have extra money.
Mhm. Very good thoughts. Anyone want to add to that or had your own thoughts? I think class time is more interesting when more than people than just me talk, so don't feel afraid, and I'll try to be quiet for a bit here.
I think there's a certain amount of giving each other room. I work in a noisy wood shop all day, so when I get home, I just like to be quiet.
Mhm.
If my wife is at home all day, it's a quiet house, she likes somebody to talk to.
that some of the muscle in the bone working together? Yes.
Personally, for me, me time is, I enjoy doing things with family.
Mhm.
That's relaxing and enjoying.
And I believe that's a godly use of that rejuvenation time. You get into some of these third world countries, they don't have the ability to fly to America to take a trip. But we can fly to their lovely islands and relax and rejuvenate. But that's their life. That's where they live. Is there more to life than just our vacations? As you were talking, Wilmer, another question. I have lots of questions tonight, maybe. Do I do service work to justify my vacations or my leisure time? Like I stacked up this much good works over here by going on a work project, or I gave my time somewhere, or maybe it's even I gave money, I gave X amount of dollars to charity, so now I can use this pile over here to do something that I want to do. My wife's grandpa, he said a lot of things in life, it comes down to balance. You go to extremes on either end, it's a life out of balance, a balanced life, or maybe you use the word moderation. Things in moderation, a lot of things in moderation are okay. It's the excess that gets us out of balance. Have you ever pitied yourself because of someone else's social media page? Man, they just have the greatest life. Look at they're always going on vacations. Does social media ever lie? I think we all know in our hearts that those photos that are posted are not their whole life. But we can start to feel some pity maybe on myself. I can't grasp the word I want, but I start pitying myself, like they have such a good life. Look at all they do. They go here, they go there. Look at their house, but they're only posting a part of the picture. When I was at SMBI, one of the girls, I can't grasp the whole song, but she wrote a song about this mask on my face isn't really me. She ended up with saying, I'm just clowning around. So basically, a lot of us hide behind a mask, and we only show what we want others to see. And you could even maybe get jealous of someone that's a missionary. I serve on Olive Branch. Grenada's pretty beautiful. If the missionaries are only posting pictures of the sunset and the sunrises and you can say, wow, that's the life. But you don't see the struggles and the heartaches. And so it's good to think about what am I sharing? What am I posting? And then I had to look back at my parents. I said, how much me time did my mom take or my dad take? Yes, they had their time of devotions. I know I was raised on a hog farm, and we would get up, we would work, and we would eat breakfast, and then it was pretty regular. I'm sure my dad missed some days, but after breakfast, Dad would go up to his bedroom to have his time of devotions, and that's where he would, when he had his devotions. And so he did have those times set apart, but I don't remember them just needing to take off here and take off there, and to take care of themselves, to get away from us. Their life was us. It was raising us. And maybe today our generation, the thing that's maybe that I see, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is the coffee shops are pretty much the thing. I gotta have my coffee and relax. Again, moderation. It's not wrong to go to a coffee shop, and I do. My wife likes when I stop and buy her a coffee or pop in when we're driving somewhere. But moderation. A balanced life. In 1995, the gray wolves were reintroduced to the Yellowstone National Park after a 70-year hiatus. Scientists expected this to have an ecological ripple effect, but the size and scope of what happened kind of surprised even them. As the wolves are predators and kill certain animals, but they indirectly give life to others. And this is what they saw. When the wolves re-entered the ecological equation, it radically changed the behavior patterns of other wildlife. As the wolves began killing coyotes, the rabbits and mouse population increased, thereby attracting more hawks, weasels, foxes, and badgers. In the absence of predators, deer had overpopulated the park and overgrazed parts of Yellowstone. Their new traffic patterns allowed the flora and fauna to regenerate. The berries on the renewed shrubs caused a spike in the bear population. In 6 years' time, the trees in overgrazed parts of the park had quintupled in height. Bear valleys were reforested, aspen, willow, and cottonwood trees. And as soon as that happened, songbirds started nesting in the trees. Then the beavers started chewing them down. Beavers are ecosystem engineers, building dams that create natural habitats for otters, muskrats, ducks, as well as fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves even changed the behavior of the river patterns. They meandered less because of less soil erosion. The channels narrowed and pools formed as the regenerated forest stabilized the riverbanks. The Yellowstone ecosystem proves that we need a balance in life, but hardly anything is more difficult than balance. It's hard to live a balanced life. We tend to be extremists. Solomon, in helping us to live life under the sun, provides pieces of wisdom about what's really necessary for a balanced life. A balanced life means one lived in agreement with godly principles. And as we want to turn to Ecclesiastes, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Ecclesiastes. But Solomon proves that things don't satisfy. That's not living what God had called us to. Ecclesiastes 2, verses 1 to 11. This is where Solomon, he lived it up. You know, there wasn't anything, I think, not listed in this that what you could do. He said in verse 1, I said in mine heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. How many of us just thought, if I just didn't have to work, just continual vacation, wouldn't that be bliss? It's not. A lot of you are married. You went on your honeymoon. Were you ready to get back to work, get back to normal life? Maybe you weren't, but I find that after you're on vacation, after a while, it's just, we need to get back to normal. Maybe I'm odd, but I don't think so. I think there's something fulfilling about work. And yes, pleasure for a season, for a bit of time, can be relaxing and rejuvenating, but too long, it loses it. It starts to become vanity. In verse 2, he said, I said of laughter, it is mad, of mirth, and of mirth, what doeth it? I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was the good for the sons of men, which they should do under heaven all the days of their life. I made me great works, I builded me houses, I planted me vineyards, I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruits. I made me pools of water, to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possession of great and small cattle. Above all there were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, the peculiar treasures of kings and of provinces. I gat me men singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem, and my wisdom remained with me, and whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor. And this was the portion of all my labor. Shouldn't Solomon be a happy fellow? He had everything. It says, I even kept my wisdom. He had all these riches, and yet he still points out, and I still had my wisdom. What does he say in verse 11? Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. What an empty life. As Solomon, sometimes I struggle to, how could Solomon in all his wisdom, he was the wisest man on earth, think that things would provide him joy? But how many times do I think things will cause me joy? If I just had, and you put it in, each one of us probably has a different thing we would put in there. Am I laying my life on God's balanced scale and saying, Lord, what do I need? I do need some time of relaxation, a rejuvenation, but is it what God's calling relaxation and rejuvenation, or is it man's seeking after the things that are under the sun? I looked through Ecclesiastes here quickly this afternoon. There's a few verses that we want to pick out. After Solomon tried all this, there's a couple of verses where he talks about better things. So let's look at a few of these better. In Ecclesiastes 4:9, he says, 2 are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. So 2 are better than one. Relationships, isn't this speaking of relationships? Relationships are better than all these things that he had. As we connect with people, whether it's our wife or husband, or whether it's just a friend, it brings a sense of satisfaction, of fulfillment. In verse 13, he says, better is a poor and wise child than a old foolish king. A poor, wise child is better than an old foolish king. Someone that has everything but doesn't have his senses. And so often, how do we grade people on their wealth? Well, they must be better because they have more money. But Solomon is saying that's not what's better. That's not where joy is. Ecclesiastes 5:9. Moreover, the prophet of, I think I must have read a wrong verse. That one don't have better in it. 6:9 is what it was supposed to be. Better is the sight of the eye than the wondering of desire. There is also vanity and vexation of the spirit. Do we have a wandering desire, or do we have a single eye for God? Single eyes for our wife. Single eyes for the things that are good in life. Do we have our desires controlled? Chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that the end of all men and the living will lay it to his heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for that by the sadness of the countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of the fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. And we won't catch all of these here, but just a brief. A good name. Do we strive to have a good name? And how do we get a good name? It's by living the principles that God has set out for us. It says it's better than precious ointment. What do you think about the phrase, the day of the death is better than the day of one's birth? Do we look forward to death? Not so much at my age, per se. But what he's saying is you don't know anything anymore. The life's toils, life's troubles are past. I was talking with my aunt, she's 80, probably about 82, somewhere in that range. And she's like, when your loved ones are in heaven, you start looking forward to going there. And when the aches and pains and you just can't move and do things like you did when you were younger, it creates a desire to go home. And I think that's good for us to think about going home. And as we have life good and we're healthy, we probably don't think about it maybe as much as we should. But isn't it going to be more glorious over there than here? Do I trust God that what he said is true? Do I trust him that it's going to be better over there? And none of us have ever been there, so it's that valley of the shadow of death. But do we trust God that it's going to be better? And going back to my aunt, she's not an invalid, she's not held up, but she just doesn't get around, and she was a feisty little old lady, and she's still working circles around a lot of younger ladies. She still goes to work a couple days a week, but it's just, do we have a vision of home? The day of one's death is better than one's birth. Verse 5 kind of challenged me. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. How do I handle rebuke? Do my defenses go up? We'll wait. Or do I listen that, hey, someone has a concern for me? How many of you like going and talking to somebody? Maybe you think the ministers do. They just love that, right? We don't. And I don't think your ministers do either. So if someone comes and talks to you, how much time do you think they took till they got up enough courage to do that? I'm guessing most times it's yes, you're going to have those circumstances that someone just wants to get at you or pick at you, but do I take rebuke well? Do I listen to it? And maybe they are wrong. Maybe they don't know the whole story of something that happened in life. But do I still listen to it? Or do I become and challenge them? Well, you do this. That's probably, maybe they are doing that, but that's probably not the right time to bring it up. Probably just take the rebuke, consider it, and either change or discuss it with them and help them to understand where you're at. So I think that's all the verses I'm going to pick out of Ecclesiastes there on better. But any thoughts on any thoughts that were stirred or questions? Living a balanced life.
My thought comes to Jesus. If we would claim to be followers of Jesus, then maybe we would gain our understanding what self-time,
Mm-hmm.
what rest that really should be for me if we look at his life. It's pretty obvious what he was about. He was about his Father's business.
Are we tired because we've been in service? Maybe Dad with that. But you see, he still cared about people. So when I go on vacation to get away, what if someone comes and talks to me? You're at a restaurant in another state, and they're, hey, these people are weird looking. Let's go talk to them. Or am I on vacation and a couple times Jesus went away and the crowds followed him, and he turned around and served them. Thank you, Wilmer, for those thoughts. Yeah. Do we study Scripture to know the heart of Jesus? Am I in the Word that I know? Getting a sermon, 1 hour sermon, once a week on a Sunday, well, maybe it's 30 minutes or 45-minute sermon, it's not even an hour. Is that going to fill me? Is that going to teach me what I need to know? I came across when I was doing a study on Ephesians, trying to remember where I got it, but someone had put a little time together. So Paul said for 3 years daily he ministered to them. Was that 20 minutes? Probably not. So they went with a 4-hour time period. And so if you add 4 hours a day times 3 years, and I forget what the hours come up to, but if we did that amount of if we do one sermon a week on a Sunday morning for an hour, it would take us like 26 years to get the amount of teaching the church at Ephesus got in the 3 years. And again, we don't know exact time periods or how long Paul taught in those days, but they had a lot of teaching. They were daily in the Word. That's a challenge to me, am I daily in the Word? Yes, we're not sitting and going to school, but do I get in the Word myself? Any other thoughts? So did you all hear the question? With the pace that we live in America, should we all be more intentional about slowing up our lives or something like that? What do you think? Did you have a thought that you...
I'm not sure that it's for our physical, mental, and spiritual good that the pace of the living.
But if I... Go ahead.
I think when you're older, it's more easy to slow down. Retire, you're more done with do things you want to, and reach your family, and go volunteer.
Yeah.
Do different things, and you don't have to worry about a certain schedule.
Mm-hmm. My dad says he's 78. He's like, it doesn't take as much stuff to keep me busy as it used to. It just takes me longer to do it. But if I don't work those 50 hours and I only go to 40, people are going to say I'm lazy and I won't be able to keep up with everybody. How much does culture, peer pressure, keep us working like that?
I worked with a guy that worked at my workplace for 50 years, still with it. And he's retiring here in a couple of weeks, and he's processing. Said, I'm a little concerned that this could go up for that. Look forward to all these years.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's on the second thought. There's always things that I don't think it's good to consider right now. There's balance, like you say.
Absolutely, and I guess we could look at is retiring biblical? Well, like you said, it doesn't go as easy and there's not as much stuff that you need to do. So I think slowing down and maybe even quitting is okay, but what am I doing then with my time? Am I using it to volunteer, or am I using it to pamper myself? If you find out, if you're concerned about dying, if you sit around, you die quicker. How many people retire and in a couple months are gone because they just stop doing things? And I think work can change as we get older, what we do. It could be go into more the volunteer basis because you have the time and that. I think we would do well to consider how much time do I need to work. There's other parts in the nation that work probably like we do, but there's a lot of places that life is just a little slower pace. And some of that is because of environment. So my sister lives in Alaska. In the winter, you just don't get started till 9 o'clock. I guess it's too cold and too dark. But my brother lives in southern Georgia, and there again, it's a slower pace. You start a little later, you quit a little earlier. Is it all bad? Or is that being lazy? We're pretty good at, the Lord said, 6 days thou shalt work. Maybe we're down to 5 days or 4.5 days so that you have a long weekend. No, thank you, Tim, for that question. Any other questions or thoughts? And that fit well with where I was going next. We heard the phrase, time is money. And in America, we search for techniques to cut our time down, products that decrease our work efforts, and aren't required to doesn't require as much effort to get the task completed. And how many of us find this contagious? And we find ourselves impatient when the guy in front of us doesn't get moving at the green light. Light's red, light turns green. We should be moving, eh? My wife knows I am that person. Like, come on, if everyone's just watching the light, when it turns green, take your foot off the brake and we all start moving. It's pretty simple. But how frustrated do I let myself get if I have to sit through one extra red light? Is it a big deal in the grand scheme of things? And then I was coming down here tonight, and this tractor had to be going, and there was a long line of traffic behind it, and the first guy refused to pass him. I'm like, I didn't plan this in my trip. I thought of this. Okay, I don't think I got 2 tenths, but well, Dale will just maybe have a heart attack if I'm not here right at the start. He'll just have to teach. But how frustrated do I let myself get because we have this thought, time is money, and things got to happen for what? So I can go relax? What am I rushing to? Is it a selfish desire? I deserve better than this. I shouldn't have to wait. And this is an area I have to do better, but just talking to the car in front of you or crossing the border at Canada, I always pick the slowest line, and I'm sitting there watching these other lines go faster. Like, they need to have a better system here that the first guy comes in, goes, and what does it matter, Joel? I've always made it home. But that 5 minutes extra that it took. And culture is teaching us this, and it's not just us as Mennonites, it's culture. The attention spans are getting less. They say back in the 60s, TV commercials were a minute long. You got into the 70s and they were down to 30 seconds. And today they say there's some 5 and 10 second commercials. Because we are an instant gratification society that I need it now. What does that have to do with balance? Is that what God called us to? It's all about me. What can I get out of the day? Is that what God has called us to? You know, YouTube is there so that we don't have to read the manual. We have electronic mail versus going out to the mailbox for snail mail, which I do think is better because the postal system is the way it is right now. But that bleeds into our relationships. Why struggle in a church relationship when I can just have a Facebook church? And if I don't like it, I can just delete it and unfriend it and move on to the next group. Life's a lot less messy that way. But is that what God called us to? How does that affect our spiritual life, our spiritual relationships? Why sit quietly with the Word of God when I can listen to a podcast? I can have them earbuds in and it blocks out the annoying fellow employees, and I'm doing something good. I'm listening to God's Word spoke. Hey, why should I research a verse when I can just Google and Google can tell me what the verse is supposed to mean? Have we lost something on sitting down and having a quiet time before God? Going back to the podcasts, is it good for us? What are we listening to? If I'm pouring evangelical, that's the word I want, evangelical and Protestant teaching into my brain all day long, and I'm hearing one sermon from my pastor a week, how's that going to affect my life? Who's going to have more say? They say what you feed on is what you become. What I'm listening to will start making sense over time. At first you might say, well, maybe it's not quite there, but it's pretty good. So how much wrong is okay? I did a devotions for the youth when we were youth leaders quite a few years ago. And this, I got it from a story. This one dad came in and his daughter was watching a movie with her friends. And he's like, what about, is that really good? Well, Dad, it just has a little scene here or there. Hey, he didn't say anything. He went into the kitchen and he made some cookies, and that's what I did for the youth. I made a batch of cookies for them, and anyway, the dad in his story brought the cookies into the daughter and said, hey, here, I made some cookies for you. And that's kind of what I did for the youth. Hey, pass the cookies out. Said, you have to hold the cookie till I'm done with the devotional. And I forget what the dad did, but after I was done with the devotional about looks and, what do I allow a little bit into my life? So now you can eat the cookie. Just wanted to tell you, I just put a little bat poop in the cookie dough. Does it look different that way? Would you eat the cookies? I think a couple of the guys actually tried it. They risked it, that they got just the good part. And it was really minor, just a teaspoon or something in the whole cookie dough. But what do I allow? What do I allow into my life? And how's it affecting me? How has culture affected our church life? Maybe before I go on, someone has a thought on that. How has culture affected us as Anabaptist Mennonites? A couple points that we want to look at. Personal independence. Individualism. What does it say about a person that seems to be on fire for God, for Christ, but can't stay long in one church group? They just hop from here to there to there. Individualism. Am I willing to submit to the brotherhood? And here in Lancaster, Lebanon, Berks County, wherever y'all are from, we have a smorgasbord of churches. If you don't like it here, I can just jump over there. No commitment to the body. Maybe I should ask if there's any marketers here before I go on with my next point. Just forgive me, any marketing people, but marketing has told us that life is short. And you shouldn't have to do anything that you don't want to do. There's a fix for everything. You got a stomach ache, Pepto-Bismol. You got a headache, Tylenol. It's just, we're an instant fix society. And marketing makes us feel like we're missing out on something. And does that bleed into our churches with individualism and, hey, I don't need to do that if I don't want to do that? Another thing that we see that has affected our churches is all you got to do is believe. The thought that all you got to do is believe. Easy believism. The gospel of Jesus Christ has been reduced to a sketchy belief in the Bible and a mental acceptance of his work on the cross. In easy believism, the goal is just to escape hell. Is that what Christ is to you? Just an escape, get out of jail free card, get out of hell free? That's kind of a weak doctrinal soup that has started to permeate into our Christian world. And since this is just a mental assent and a verbal belief, 75% of Americans would consider themselves Christian. And that it might have changed since I got these numbers. I know that's going downhill as we go. But I hope that isn't us, that all that Christ is an escape from hell for us. Is that what Jesus said there in John 17? That accept me just so that you get out? No, he said, believe on me. He prayed for us that we could be one, that the world may see and know who he is. We have a higher calling than just getting out of hell free. We hear terms, they got saved, or they came to the Lord, or they joined the church, or they came forward. Is that really giving the picture of what the gospel is? And that's some things that we do. You know, we maybe did go forward. We maybe did come to the Lord. But what did Peter say in Acts there when they said, what can we do? He said, repent and be baptized. It's a commitment. They committed their life to the Lord would probably be a better word than, well, he came forward. It's easy to be enamored by our part in the program. And yes, we do need to accept what God has given us. But do we have a bigger picture of what God's vision is? That without Jesus' atoning blood, there wouldn't be any redemption for me. It's not just about what I did. Jesus said in John 20:21, so Jesus said to them again, peace to you. As the Father has sent me, I also send you. Am I committed to that calling? It's not I just came forward because it was the right thing to do, or it was the time to join the church. But I committed myself to Jesus. Maybe we could say we hooked up our wagon to him. We're following him. Someone had mentioned about knowing what Jesus' rest was. Do I know what Jesus' mission was? And what is our mission? How do I line up with what Jesus' mission was? He says, I send you, so send I you. That's a calling to each one of you. It's not just to the pastors. Each one of us are called to go. So send I you. Some of them might be sent a couple thousand miles away. Some of us might be sent to our next door neighbor. Am I listening to what Jesus wants in my life? How do we fulfill his command? Let me back up. It's easy to read those words and agree with that in our minds. But do I miss the true depth of the statement of so send I you? As the Father has sent me, as God sent Jesus, so send I you. We're to walk his footsteps. Do I know where his footsteps went? What was the path that he took? We read in Ephesians last night, it was dying for the church. And I'm supposed to die for my wife the way that Jesus died for the church. So how do we show this? By our deeds, by our words. Jesus showed no prejudice to class, culture, or religion. He met with anybody. Are there people that we wouldn't meet with? I hope there's places we wouldn't go. But Jesus was accused pretty often of doing things that the Pharisees wouldn't do. But he cared for people. He met them where they were. And that's not to say we should go to the bar and to be an evangelist. I'm not saying that. But we need to be willing to be stretched, willing to meet with our neighbors, get into their houses, have them over. Ask the Lord, where do you want me to go today? You look at who Jesus touched. He touched the Romans. He healed the one general's daughter. He met with the religious leaders. He associated with the lepers and the adulterers. Again, he didn't, as you think about the adulterers, he didn't condone their works, but he called them to a new life. Is my life calling the lost to a new life? Are my message and my deeds a clear picture of who God is? Do I lay myself on God's balanced scale? There's an anonymous writer wrote this. He said, Jesus spent his life helping the poor, sick, and needy. He embraced those on the lowest rungs of society. He taught love, hope, compassion, and forgiveness. He said, the exact opposite of what the Republicans stand for. So please stop calling Republicans Christians. They're not. They worship Reagan, guns, and greed, not Jesus Christ. Who am I aligning with? Do we stay out of the political realm? So you call yourself one or the other. Can you witness to the opposite? If I say let's just say I say I'm a Republican, how am I going to have a message for the Democrats? But when I'm neutral, I can reach both. Do I stay out of the political world? Are we doing a good job of imitating Jesus? Jesus met with all these, but the different groups wouldn't meet with each other, but Jesus associated with them all. He gave us a mandate to exhibit the character of God. Or have I become like everyone else, protecting my little kingdom? Maybe it's my job. Maybe you have a business. Maybe it's our houses. I built this. Don't let anyone touch it or break it. How free am I letting people use my things? Are they really mine? Or am I a steward of what God gave me? What did I do on my own to get these things? You could say, well, I worked. Well, how did you work? Did not God give you the ability to work? Do we keep that kingdom mindset that all of our stuff is God's? How many of you heard of Bill Maher? He's an agnostic, very liberal person on the news. He's a writer. And he addressed the hypocrisy of Jesus' followers. This is pretty astounding from a very liberal source. He said, if you rejoice in revenge, torture, and war, you cannot say you are a follower of the guy who said to love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. Nonviolence was kind of Jesus' trademark. A very godless person realizing that if you're going to be a Jesus follower, you He didn't say it in these words, but you can't go to war. Nonviolence was Jesus' trademark. To not follow that part is like joining Greenpeace and hating whales. There's interpreting, and then there's just ignoring. It's just ignoring if you're for torture, as more evangelical Christians are than any other religion. He concludes, you're not Christ followers, you're just a fan. Think about that. Weigh ourselves in that balance. Am I a Christ follower, or am I just a fan of Jesus? What did Jesus tell his followers? I failed to write the reference down. I think it was out of Matthew here. But he says, and he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself. Take up his cross daily and follow me. For whosoever shall save his life shall lose it. But whosoever shall lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. For what is a man advantaged if he gain the whole world and lose himself or be cast away? For whosoever shall be ashamed of me and my words, of him shall the Son of Man be ashamed when he come in his own glory and in his Father's and of the holy angels. Deny himself. How well am I doing that? Taking up his cross daily. It's not just once a month. It's not just, oh, I did that one time, now I'm good. It says daily to take up his cross. Any thoughts on what a cross is? The definition that I was given that I like is it's something specific to a Christian. If the world gets it, it's not a cross. So the world gets sick. I get sick. That's not really what a cross is. But it's when I'm persecuted, when I'm despised because of who I am as a Christian. And yes, those are hardships to deal with. The loss of life. You just name it. There's a lot of sadness that we suffer and the world also suffers. But I think the cross goes above that, beyond that. And am I willing to lay self on God's balance scale? Lord, what is my cross? Lord, I'll deny myself. Any thoughts? Just some food for thought here. And maybe say, as we've gone through this week, you know what? I wish my church was this way or that way, but it's not. Well, there's power in patient prayer. Reformers tend to want things to happen right now, right here. But just remember, you probably didn't get to where your thought process is, and allow your church to have time to come to that. Maybe you have a good thought, but a bull in a china closet still destroys. So don't be like the bull and come in and try to change things right away. Believe God. Pray about it. Resist cliques. Do you only communicate with those you agree with, or you do reach out to the others and try to find out why they think the way they do? Be the vision you want to see in others. So you want to see change happening? Change first. Be the one to step out. Don't expect others to change without you living what you're preaching. And no group is perfect. Remember, no church is perfect. There's going to be hurts and things wherever you go. God desires close communities. And yes, we still will hurt each other from time to time, but let's forgive each other and move on. Maybe a little continuing in our story here with that thought of hurts. As we look at Shady Oak congregation, And this is entitled Away from What We Despise. So as we think about, we move to what we like and away from what we despise. It says, when Fairmont Tradition started his new fellowship, he was followed by a young man named Nathaniel Nitpick. Nathaniel loved to read church history, understand the dangers of worldliness, and could explain just what happens when churches neglect the threat of acculturation. To Nathaniel Nitpick, Needmore Outreach's church was a living example of slow drift toward the world. And he despised what he observed. He saw the bright colors and changing hairstyles. And to Nathaniel, the solution was obvious. The safest place for a church was far away from the world as possible. As Needmore Outreach's church slowly drifted toward a cultural assimilation, Nathaniel Nitpick moved in the opposite direction. Pastor Fairmont was concerned about as Nathaniel became more and more obsessed with rules and details. In the end, there was little in Nathaniel Nitpick's life that would compel a seeker to inquire. He had continued to moving further and further away from what he despised and arrived at a place of cold legalism. When Needmore started his church, he was followed by a young man named Larry Looselove. Larry understood the foolishness of legalism, loved to speak of freedom in Christ, and was good at explaining why salvation will never be found in rules. To him, Tradition's church was a living example of what happens when a church focuses on rules instead of Christ. Larry shook his head each time Fairmont's church got more detailed in their dress code and nodded his head each time they experienced another internal conflict. To Larry, the problem was obvious. Christianity is to be a growing love story, not a growing set of rules. As Fairmont's church moved away from society, Larry Looselove moved in the opposite direction. Needmore became concerned as Larry slowly became more and more like the surrounding culture. Finally, there was little in Larry Looselove's life that would interest a seeker. He had moved further and further away from what he despised. And as we look at both of those brothers, they both focused on spiritual imperfection of others and slowly moved away from what they despised. So, do I just look at the failures of others and nitpick and tear them down? They were both focused on where they had been more than on where they were going. Do I keep my vision of where I'm going? If we want to stay the course, we need to have a vision of where we're going. And if I'm looking at others around me, that's not a safe vision when I'm comparing myself to others. Keep our eyes on Jesus, focus on him, and surrender and submit to the brotherhood. May God bless you, and look forward to another night tomorrow.